Hi, and welcome to Z Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Z Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
Greetings, friends. Welcome to another exciting episode of Z Games, Australia's most beloved gaming radio show, which we have customised just for you, dear listener. This show, all of the contents we have cherry-picked for your specific listening enjoyment. So this will no doubt be your favourite show of the year, in fact. Isn't that right, Razor?
Indeed.
Yes. Jody, would you agree?
Totally.
Yes.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but sure.
Yes. You were there when we said that the listener who's listening right now is our favourite listener and that we were going to make this show just for them.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's right. Razor?
Yes. I agree this is going to be a great show, dear listener.
Yes.
You should keep listening.
Good.
What are we going to talk about, by the way?
This episode is just, it's rich. It's plump with content.
You know, maybe we should deliver the goods first and then brag.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. How about we brag at the end of the show?
Well, there's news, of course, and then 2 reviews. Jody, you've been playing a video game.
Yeah, I've been playing Cold Heart, which is the add-on for Batman Arkham Origins that adds Mr. Freeze to the game.
That sounds ice. I got nothing. I'm sorry. We'll fix that up in post. Yes, and I have been playing Dark Souls 2, a game so difficult that it has ravaged my body and filled me with disease. So look forward to that, listeners, and also lean back from the radio so you don't catch what I've got. That's how it works. Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
But shall we kick this episode off with the week in gaming news headlines, Jody?
We should. A 30-year-old urban legend has been confirmed by excavators working on a documentary about the burial site of thousands of Atari game cartridges in the New Mexico desert. In 1982, 5 million copies of E.T. the Extraterrestrial were produced for the Atari 2600 console, with an expectation of huge sales due to the success of the affiliated feature film. Instead, the game was a massive commercial failure, selling only 1.5 million copies, and is often cited as one of the worst video games ever made. As well as this, ports of arcade hits Pac-Man and Space Invaders sold poorly, leaving Atari with warehouses full of unsold cartridges with absolutely no demand. According to The Myth, the unsold cartridges were buried in a landfill in New Mexico and covered with concrete. The story became an urban legend mainly due to the lack of verifiable evidence surrounding it. Earlier this year, Microsoft announced that the burial of the games would become the focus of a multi-part documentary to be shown exclusively over the Xbox Live network. This week, the legend was confirmed as true when boxed copies of E.T. were pulled from the landfill by excavators working with the film crew. The producers have said that they intend to sell the majority of the cartridges that they unearth. The documentary is scheduled to air later this year.
There's just too many jokes there, really. Even to pick one would be denying others of equal value. So, Jody, you go first.
I want one of those because I still have a working Atari 2600, but I might have to blow on the cartridge for a pretty long time.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay, let me go.
All right.
Haven't these guys ever seen The Exorcist? You know, at the start when the guy unwittingly unleashes the devil in an excavation mission?
Right, so you're saying these copies of E.T. are possessed?
They should have left them buried there because who knows what evil they have unleashed.
Do we have a button that makes a cricket chirping sound in response to that one line?
Yes, but it was worn out because of last week's show when you delivered that monologue, Lee.
Yeah. That was a winning monologue. Yeah.
It wasn't just E.T. that they buried, but like Pac-Man, Space Invaders. They found copies of Centipede down there as well.
Oh, wow.
I liked Centipede.
Yeah, Centipede was pretty good. I mean, Pac-Man was awful on the Atari.
Yeah, but Space Invaders was a solid port.
That's true.
So,
it's surprising the lengths that Microsoft will go to secure an exclusive these days. But you heard it here first. E.T. is coming to Xbox One and 360.
Cool.
Yes. That's how you do it, by the way.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, nice.
Really good publicity for the documentary, though. I mean, they really couldn't have asked for a better publicity grab. It's been covered by all the major news outlets Fortunately, we have to be complicit in this as well.
Nerds dig up trash. More at 11.
A disgruntled gamer who lost at Call of Duty has called a SWAT team to take out his rival. Rafael Castillo, a 17-year-old from Long Island, USA, was still playing the game when he was interrupted by the Special Operations team from the local police department, who were called in to respond to threats of a murder-suicide at his address. The hoaxer has not yet been identified. Police are attempting to locate him via his electronic footprints.
Wow. So apparently this is part of like a larger thing that happens called swatting,
Yeah.
where you just...
This isn't the first time?
No.
This is a teen thing that they do now.
All right, when they're not like sniffing glue and
Yeah, choking each other
Yeah.
out for sexual pleasure. Yeah.
they're calling SWAT teams.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
back in the
Kids
day,
today.
we used to
Yeah.
call pizzas for people that didn't want them, and we thought that was really bad. But this is next level stuff.
That is like at
Yeah,
least.
we were pussies.
Yeah.
Good on you kids of today.
Yeah, like pizza. That's still a gift in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas no one is happy to see the SWAT team
Yeah.
smash their door in with that big metal thing. Actually, no, that would end badly.
A normal person, when they lose at Call of Duty, just rage quits and calls someone a hacker or a noob. It is pretty next level.
Yeah.
How badly do you have to lose before you think, time to call the SWAT team?
That's the real question. Like, was this guy like he better have been dominating that map, like just 100 kills to no losses, and the other guy had 100 losses and no kills. It has to be that level of a beating.
So that's what would make you call a SWAT team.
Not specifically me, because I don't think I could sound believable enough when talking to the police. Sarcastic voice is permanent, unfortunately. But I would say it'd have to be that level of like, I'm going to teach this guy a lesson before I went to such lengths. Razor, what's the worst thing that you've ever done as a result of a terrible beating in a video game?
Nothing. Punched the pillow, threw the controller.
Wow,
Yeah.
you
You're
sound
so well adjusted.
Yeah, pretty normal type kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Nothing wrong with me whatsoever.
right. I see.
Yeah, we believe you.
Yeah, thanks.
This man is hiding a dark past, listener. You don't even want to know. No.
Yep.
There are gestures here indicating terrible, gruesome ends. Moving on.
All right. Next up, we'll be talking about Dark Souls 2 for the PC. Lee, you have been playing the PC adaptation of Dark Souls 2. Now, it came out last month for the console.
A month before that, I think.
A while ago.
Yeah.
So we're jumping on now that the PC version's out this week.
Yes, we are. And I've been looking forward to this for some time. I'm a big fan of Dark Souls. Long-time listeners, those of you with grey hair and long beards might remember me talking about how exquisite an experience the first one was. So this is out, and fortunately it's a very good port, which we couldn't say about the last PC version, but this one is just solid and works out the gate. So if you're already a fan and you were wondering whether to pick up the PC version, you should. It's the best version. Pick it up right now.
Good. I played the PC version of Dark Souls 1, and that might be a significant part of the reason why it didn't work for me, why I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty rough.
Yeah. Did you play it with the keyboard and mouse?
Yeah, I did, and they'd swapped it around somehow so that the faster you moved the mouse, the slower your viewpoint moved.
Yeah. See, don't do that.
Yes.
Use a controller. It's an action brawler game. Use a controller.
So even Dark Souls 2, you'd say use a controller?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've tried it with the mouse and keyboard and it works, but it doesn't feel right, which I will get into later. But Dark Souls is a series with a bit of notoriety and a cult status these days for having incredibly interesting interlocking combat systems and a brutal, uncaring world that will punish you over and over and over again. Teamed up with kind of desolate beauty and a story that you just you pick up by osmosis. It's not a game that wants to tell you much. You have to pay attention to things and draw your own conclusions. So the first one I can see people finding it quite off-putting because you're in a world that doesn't care about you, that is dying around you, and you are going to die a lot. And that's not necessarily an inviting place. If you want to sit down and relax and, play a bit of a game where you've got a sword, that can be intimidating. That can seem like work. Dark Souls 2 kind of continues this tradition, but in a way that is a little bit more approachable. But let me see if I can explain the Dark Souls gameplay for you, Ray, with your quizzical eyebrow there, and try to summarize why it works. Dark Souls 2, it's a game where you find yourself sitting at a bonfire in the middle of a forest. The forest it looks like it's very old, and it feels like everything in it is starting to rot. It feels like this was once a vibrant place that has been abandoned. You've just heard a mysterious witch woman tell you something about going and finding souls, finding greater souls. But you don't really know what the deal with that is. But you do know that you've got a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, and you've been in this situation before. Sword, pointy end of the sword goes in the other man. You cross a stream, and an armored figure shambles over towards you, and he's slow and cumbersome, and he's slowly raising a rusty axe to bring it down against you, and you're like, you've been here before, you know what you're doing. So you raise your shield, and the impact slams into you and knocks you back. This is a heavy it's a heavy weapon that has hit you. You are weighed down with metal, and that weight is palpable, and you try to swing back, and you feel yourself being exhausted with each exertion. Maybe you overcome that first enemy. He drops to the ground. You see the souls enter into your soul counter. You feel pretty good, which is the point that the one that was waiting nearby for that moment stands up and jams a spear into you unexpectedly, and then your guy goes, "Ugh!" and the screen goes black, and you are told for the first of many, 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 many times that you have died, and you resurrect, and you have to go and do that again and gain your resources back. It's a game about dealing with weight and timing, and for some people that is just delicious, and for others that is boring. But I am definitely intrigued by everything that's going on around me.
Yep. A lot of games these days are really hold the hand of the player. I mean, that sort of user friendliness sort of is really necessary. Well, I guess that's what the publishers and developers think for attracting a wide audience. Do you think that the cult-like success of Dark Souls, the original one, is due to the fact that it's like old school in that way? It's a really brutal game. Yeah,
I think so. It's this kind of thing where there wasn't much documentation that came with it, so in order to progress, people had to talk to one another, and that ties in really nicely with the way that the game does actually feature other players. So while you yourself, you're alone and you're in this lonely environment, you will see these ghostly images of other players as they're going around. Like when you're at a bonfire, which is where you sit and regain health and reset the world, and you can use them to teleport around. You'll see around the light there will be other players who will just be standing there as they're about to go off and do their own thing. And they will look very different to you. They'll be like, probably they have much better stuff than you. You'll be, wearing crap and, wielding rusty junk, and they'll be, they'll have a sword that's made out of a dragon and a hat that's made out of a, demon's pelvis or something.
It's my favorite hat.
Yeah, that was you.
The Pelvidora.
The Pelvidora, yes. So you see that other people are out there, and sometimes you can see them, and they'll be fighting, an enemy that you can't see. And you also will see blood splatters in the world, and if you go and interact with those, you can see the last moments of those players' lives. So you'll see them desperately fighting. Maybe some of them are, blocking and, struggling, and then you see them get nailed from behind, or you watch someone attempt a difficult jump and then just fly straight off into the infinite ocean that surrounds the entire environment. It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger, and it makes you feel like even though you are, generally quite alone, there are other people who are also experiencing at least the same thing that you are.
So it's not a multiplayer game per se, but you kind of get echoes of what the other players are doing that sort of transfer over into your personal world? Is that the deal?
You actually... It is a multiplayer game as well in limited doses. There are ways that you can bring these ghostly players into your world very briefly, maybe for a boss fight or on a timer. There's, I think, a resource that lets them appear for 3 or 4 minutes. But you can't really communicate. You don't get to talk to them. You can kind of gesture, and I think you can gain spells that give you limited amounts of communication, but still they're an alien entity that you have brought into your world, hopefully to help, and also to help themselves. You can also... there are areas where if you are a villain, you can drag other people into your world to fight them, and you can also invade other people's worlds. But that hasn't happened too much for me, which is nice.
That sounds really like a brutal thing to do to someone, considering the already enormous difficulty of the game.
Yeah, it's kind of a massive dick move. But the player base has kind of they've embraced it up to a point, and I think the game, as long as people aren't cheating, which they probably will be very soon, the game is balanced in a way where that's just one more way that this world is uncompromising, but it's not too much of a terrible thing. You're generally kind of always on edge anyway, and dying to another player is at least like a little bit more satisfying than being killed by a creature that you have fought over and over again on your way to do something impossible. There's a lot of stuff that you have to get an understanding of that it doesn't really want to talk to you about, and even though it's a game about building up your stats as well, it ends up not really being an RPG either. It is ultimately all about, it's a combat game. There are people who play through with like the starter equipment who never, build up their stats, and they can still, people have made perfect runs of Dark Souls like that as just these incredible, fighting freaks. I don't know how they would do it, but they have. They know how to dodge, and they know how to block, and they know how to parry, and they know how to do all these things, and that's quite impressive. So, it's a game where, while you can kind of grind to make up for your shortcomings, it's also something that will allow you, if you are just purely a man or woman of action, you can succeed. So, while I would say it's for the hardcore, but it's not necessarily for the kind of person that you think of as being a hardcore gamer. It's for someone who wants to be a hardcore Dark Souls player, which is different.
I see. Cool. Well, thank you very much for that review, Lee. I'm certainly intrigued.
Yes, you should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have been talking about Dark Souls 2, which just came out for the PC, but it is also available for the Xbox 360 and the PS3 as well.
Yep.
Okay, you're listening to Zed Games. Next up, Jody's going to be talking to us all about the latest DLC for Batman Arkham Origins, Cold Heart.
You have been playing the latest downloadable content for Batman Arkham Origins.
That's right.
Cold Heart.
Cold Heart.
Cold Heart, which the listeners may assume might involve fan-favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger character, Mr. Freeze.
It does involve Mr. Freeze. Like Arkham Origins itself, it's a prequel. So this is your first time meeting Mr. Freeze, whereas Arkham Origins was your first time meeting a bunch of the other famous Bat villains.
All in one night.
All in one night.
Just like Santa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was set at Christmas.
Yeah.
This is set at New Year's Eve, so it's a few days after the main storyline of Arkham Origins has ended. And if you still want more of Arkham Origins, this gives you 3 or 4 hours more of it.
Now, you say it's set at New Year's Eve. Does this mean that Mr. Freeze and Batman get to share a kiss?
Tragically, no. Nobody. There's no mistletoe. There's no kissing. There's no countdown to
What?
fireworks at all.
What? Video games love countdowns.
I know, right?
What is this?
I know.
Ugh.
A tragic abuse of New Year's Eve.
Oh, no. Well, at least it's snowing, right?
Yes, it is snowing. Mr. Freeze has frozen over half of Gotham. It starts with one of those charity balls that Gotham loves to throw because they just don't learn.
Yeah.
It's like, people say Bruce Wayne's got $1 billion. Why doesn't he fight crime by stopping it at its source and, ending poverty? It's because every time he tries, a bunch of goons show up to his charity event with guns and masks and take a bunch of people hostage, and then their boss shows up and threatens everyone, he has to turn into Batman.
You know what he should do if he wants to stop crime at the source? He should just stop throwing charity balls.
Yeah.
That would end one crime straight away.
And they do seem like a nexus
Yeah.
for crime. So that's what happens at the start of Cold, Cold Heart. Mr. Freeze and his goons show up and take a wealthy philanthropist hostage. And Mr. Freeze does not say, cool party. Not just a...
What?
I know, right?
But he's got to say, "Nice to meet you."
No, does not say that. Does not say, revenge is a dish best served cold. He doesn't say, let's kick some ice. He doesn't say any of that.
What? Ugh.
4 hours of Mr. Freeze not making any ice-based puns.
So I assume this is going to be one of those 7 out of 10 reviews. Then. The lowest score that we games journalists are allowed to give.
Obviously.
Yeah.
It's like he hasn't realised that making winter-themed puns is the whole point of being Mr. Freeze.
I guess he's new at it, so...
Yeah, maybe he learns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this could be the origin of the pun. Like, is there an end of credit sequence where he, realises that he could be making some reference to, there being a cool snap or,
Tragically,
what the forecast is?
No,
There
hell
is-
just froze over. No, none of that.
There is no cold-related puns whatsoever.
He doesn't tell
An
anyone
absolute dearth of them.
Damn.
doesn't tell anyone to chill out.
No.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Brilliant.
Yeah, there are no dinosaurs, so...
Damn it.
But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
God
so
damn it.
What you get instead of that is a retelling of his tragic origin. Like if you've ever seen that episode of the Batman cartoon about Mr. Freeze's backstory,
Yeah.
this is really similar to that. Like it's almost a beat-for-beat adaptation.
That was a
of
really
it.
good episode.
And it won an Emmy Award.
Yes, and they have stolen it basically,
Oh.
and let you punch some people in it and put the Penguin in it.
What does this deliver then?
Well, it does let you do the free roaming thing in a couple of suburbs of Gotham, which is half the point of playing the Batman games. Swooping around on rooftops is always fun. Diving down onto bad guys is always fun because the Arkham games have got, especially in Arkham City, they really nailed that feeling of how much fun it would be to swoop around, to fly, which is like it's an important part of the fantasy of being a superhero, is that flying would be really cool. And it's a thing that video games usually get wrong, but they've nailed it, and they continue nailing it here. It's just fun, even if you've done it before. And doing more of that, I was having a pretty good time. And there's a reason to do it because, as well as the main thing with what are Mr. Freeze and the Penguin up to, there's side missions which involve Anarchy, who's the C-list villain from Arkham Origins, who has this thing about... Actually, his complaint is pretty legit. His thing is that he wants to start a revolution because Gotham is incurably corrupt and you can't fix it by punching people who dress as animals.
Yeah.
So instead he wants to start a violent revolution, and I kind of think, well, maybe he's got a point.
Yeah, I mean, it's one step away from that anyway. You might as well have someone who's at least read a book about politics throwing the first Molotov cocktail. Yeah, rather than a guy who, half of his face is blown off and he's got an obsession with duality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not such a great choice, yes.
Yeah.
So Anarchy has started a bunch of riots across the city, and in between beating up the goons, you get to beat up the activists, and it actually tells you, you defeat a bunch of them. It's like, activists defeated.
So-
And I feel bad about that.
Well, Bruce Wayne is part of the 1%.
Yeah.
And if he's on anyone's side, it definitely is the establishment. Yeah. So, good. That's great. I'm glad that they've added that element, because that was always one thing that I hated about the most recent Batman movie, and they should translate that directly into this game.
Status quo maintained.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that Wayne Corp wouldn't have like secret offshore tax haven going on.
I think that's what all those Batmobiles and things are. He's just like, funneling all of his money there, and yeah.
Yeah, he
So-
spends that money.
Yeah.
So Bruce Wayne, he's a bit of a dick, right? Because by day he's like a wealthy tycoon
I
sort
believe
of
a
guy.
billionaire playboy.
Billionaire playboy. By night he beats the crap out of poor people
Yeah.
dressed as a bat. I mean, what an idiot.
But also rich people. Penguin is like the evil version of Bruce Wayne. He's the rich guy who doesn't try futilely to start a bunch of charity events and fight crime, who just uses... The Penguin is really the 1%. Bruce Wayne at least tries.
Okay.
Bruce
And
is
he's he's Richard Branson, right? He's using that money to do fun stuff. So you think, well, like that's what I would do if I was in the 1%. I would spend all my money on balloons and jets.
Are you saying that Richard Branson beats up poor people at night?
I'm saying it's possible.
Okay.
You do get to spend your money as well. You get a new bat suit halfway through this, which is obviously like what the latest slush fund has been spent on.
Right.
You get this cold weather environmental suit that it takes away your shock gloves, so you're not electrocuting thugs anymore, and gives you thermal gloves, so now you can punch them with it's like your fists have been turned into big sandwich toasters, but sandwich toasters of justice.
Right. So it's the same, though, right?
Yeah, no, it's exactly the same. You have to charge it up just like the shock gauntlets, only now instead of, electrocuting street criminals, you are burning their faces, basically.
So is it, in the previous game, it was like you were using kinetic energy to charge them up? Is it just thermal energy, the heat from moving around that's...
I assume so. You can thermal charge your batarangs by just sort of holding them in the air for a while. I'm not really sure about the science of this. It might, I'd have to ask a physicist.
Yeah.
But it seems, it might not be legit.
Right.
We've been talking about Cold Heart, which is the latest DLC for Batman Arkham Origins. Jody, you reviewed it on the PC. It's
Yes,
also
right.
available for the 360
And the PS3, but not the Wii U.
Sorry, guys. If you're
That's a
hanging out
shame.
for that one.
You have been listening to Zed Games. We're at the end of this episode yet again. Thanks so much for listening. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter. ZGamesAU is the handle to look for there. We also have a blog, zgamesau.net. We'll catch you next week. Now, next week we have a couple of games to talk about. Jody, you'll be talking about Daylight.
Yes, I will. I will hopefully have died less, and I'll be able to tell you what actually happens after the first hour.
Yep, and Lee, you will be talking about Child of Light.
Yes, we have different light-based games. So enjoy that. That'll be some light entertainment for our listeners.
Jesus, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, come up with more and we'll say them next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, light-based puns. I mean, we had a lot of ice-based puns tonight. But yeah, light's the topic next week. I'll have to get thinking of a few.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that, listeners.
Yeah, so
In
good.
fact, don't switch your radio off between now and then.
All right, we're going to get out of here now. You have been listening to Zed Games. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. This has been Zed Games, recorded live in Brisbane on 4ZZZ and heard nationally thanks to the Community Radio Network. For more information on the show and to join the Zed Games community, head to our website, zgamesau.net. That's spelt Z-E-D, or send us an email at contact@zgamesau.net. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Zed Games is produced with the assistance of the Community Broadcasting Foundation.